It all started when Eric's wife, Sarah, was reading the mail and found an envelope she'd been eagerly waiting for. "I won, honey," she called out, waving the envelope as she rushed into the living room where Eric was watching TV. "What did you win?" Eric asked. "I entered a contest for that decade's salon. They were giving away a free makeover, and I won," Sarah exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. "Wait, it's a makeover for two? Looks like you're a double winner," Eric said. "Who are you going to bring?" Sarah hesitated. "You're probably going to hate this idea, but..." "What?" Eric asked. "What if you came with me?" Sarah suggested. "No way," Eric replied. "You've got friends you can take." "I'm not interested." "But think about it. We spin the wheel, and we could end up matching. Maybe we'd look like Disco King and Queen or like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers," Sarah said excitedly. "Do they even work on men?" Eric asked, skeptical. "Probably, maybe, I don't know," Sarah replied. "But still, you owe me. I sat through that football game for you. You agreed to do something I wanted, and this is it." "Fine, but I'm not letting them do anything I don't approve of," Eric insisted. After Sarah made the appointment, she anxiously waited for their visit on the bright Saturday morning. "So, what makes this salon so special?" Eric asked. "Is it like they make you over like a hippie flower child? What's the difference from any regular salon?" "It's random. You go in, spin the wheel, and it has different decades and styles listed. Whatever it lands on, that's the makeover you get," Sarah explained. "Anything's possible," Eric muttered, still unsure. "I still don't like this idea." As they pulled into the parking lot across from the salon, Eric raised an eyebrow. "This place looks busy." "Too bad," Sarah said, sticking out her tongue playfully. "This is my day." Walking into the salon, Eric was taken aback by how bustling it was. There were rows of chairs and mirrors stretching through the building, and several curtains turned out to be changing rooms. Most people he saw were women, though, and no men yet. But even regular salons often have more feminine energy than masculine, he thought. At the front desk, there was a large wheel with sections marked with different decades. "I'm Sarah. I won the contest for the makeover for two," she said to the receptionist, a bottle blonde named Candy. Candy looked over the voucher and then glanced at Eric, who was lingering behind Sarah. "Is this your second?" she asked. "Right here," Sarah replied, pulling Eric up next to her. "Perfect. Just take a seat in the waiting area. We'll be with you in a minute. We're a little behind this morning," Candy said, motioning toward a row of chairs. Sarah led Eric to sit down, and they observed other clients getting worked on. For Eric, it was a show of the salon's gimmick. He watched as people walked in one way and came out looking completely different. A young woman with long hair went in, spun the wheel, and it landed on the 1920s. After some tears over cutting her hair, she came out dressed as a flapper, with a short bob and a feathered headband, looking like she stepped out of an F. Scott Fitzgerald novel. Okay, they mean business, Eric thought, still unsure about the whole idea. "So they can just do anything?" Eric asked, turning to Sarah. "To make you look like someone from whatever decade?" "Yep," Sarah said. "I think you should go first and let me see how it turns out before I decide if I want to do it." "I haven't seen a single dude here since we walked in," Eric muttered, starting to get up. "Sarah," Candy called. "It's your turn to spin the wheel." "Yay!" Sarah exclaimed, jumping out of her seat to rush toward the wheel. "Do you want to spin together or separately?" Candy asked. "Together, if we can," Sarah replied. Sensing Eric about to protest, she added, "It'll be more fun if we match." Eric kept quiet. "All right, take a spin," Candy said. Sarah spun the wheel with all her might, watching it spin through the decades. It slowed down, ticking past the 2000s, 1990s, 1980s, 1920s, and 1930s before finally landing on the 1950s. "Congratulations! You've won the 1950s makeover," Candy said. "Please head over to We don't have chairs next to each other, though. Would you mind being apart? Not at all, Sarah said, turning to Eric with a grin. That way, we'll both be surprised. Sarah said, grinning. Eric hesitated. I don't know, babe. He started. Hush, Sarah interrupted, her smile widening. You promised. Fine, Eric sighed, conceding. You can sit in chair 16, that's in the back. And Sarah, you can go next, Candy said as Eric walked to the indicated chair. A young woman with raven black hair greeted him when he arrived. Hi, I'm Chloe, and I'll be handling your makeover, she said, extending her hand, which Eric shook. These are my assistants, Ma and Shannon. So how does this work? Are you going to slick my hair back and give me a leather jacket? Eric asked. Shannon giggled, and Chloe glanced down at her tablet. It's a little more complicated than that, but I think you'll be surprised by the results, Chloe said. We don't usually get clients like you, but I think my girls are up to the task. Clients like me? Eric asked. Just take a seat, sir, and we'll handle everything from here, Shannon said, helping Eric into the salon chair. Eric sat carefully, keeping his hands in his lap. Chloe noticed his tension and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, we've got a little something for nervous clients, she said, picking up a pair of earbuds. A little music. Eric accepted the earbuds, thinking the music might help calm him. As soon as he put them in, 50s pop music started playing. At first, he just listened, tapping his fingers on the armrest. But as the music continued, he started to relax. Just sign this here, Chloe said, handing him her tablet. It's a standard form that everyone has to sign, even your wife. Sarah had already signed the same form in her seat. It was just a waiver to remove any liability from the salon in case of dissatisfaction. Sarah couldn't imagine being dissatisfied, so she signed without hesitation. Normally, Eric would have read the form, but feeling unusually content, he just scribbled his signature and returned to the soothing music. Eric's mind wandered as Chloe dunked his head into a basin of warm water. Don't worry, when we're finished, you'll look just like a 50s icon, she said as she massaged shampoo into his scalp, the sensation so relaxing that Eric's tension melted away. As Chloe worked, Eric's mind drifted even further, and soon he was completely at ease. Chloe noticed this and smiled. We'll have you looking gorgeous in no time, she said. Ma and Shannon began prepping other items to use. Your color is perfect already, Chloe giggled as she ran her fingers through Eric's hair, noting its medium length and natural texture. Eric simply smiled, his eyes half closed in relaxation. Chloe worked the shampoo through his hair, rinsed it out, and then towel-dried it before using a hairdryer to finish drying it. Once dry, she began weaving in hair extensions while Ma worked on trimming Eric's existing hair, focusing on the bangs. Once the extensions were in, Chloe called over a set of curlers. She rolled the front of his hair into 2 large curlers before pulling the rest of his hair into rows of smaller curls. When they were done, Chloe tapped Eric's shoulder. Eric, honey, get up. We need to move you to the dryer. Still in a drowsy state, Eric barely acknowledged what she was saying, but her soothing voice guided him over to the dryer station. They had a row of dryers set up, reminiscent of a traditional 50s salon. Eric sat down, and Chloe lowered the retro dome onto his head. How cute, Eric thought, amused. They're really giving me the full vintage experience. Unbeknownst to Eric, the dryer was starting to create a little pressure on his head, but he was too relaxed to notice. Ma walked over and began filing his nails. Eric almost objected, but the heat from the dryer made him even more drowsy. His eyes slowly closed. The dome blocked his vision, so even when his eyes were open, he couldn't see past his face. He had no idea when Ma began shaping his nails or when she applied acrylic tips and polished them in a bright red color. He also didn't notice Shannon doing some light makeup, foundation, rouge, mascara, eyeshadow, and a coral lipstick. If he'd noticed, he might have been surprised by the feeling of someone removing his shoes and starting a pedicure, but the music and warmth of the dryer kept him calm and unaware. When the dryer was finally lifted, he was led back to the first chair. Chloe began undoing the curlers, though she positioned his chair so that he couldn't see his reflection. He felt a heaviness on his face and hands, but Chloe was blocking his view. As the curlers came out, Eric licked his lips and tasted something unfamiliar. Is that lip balm? He thought, confused. Once Chloe removed the cape, she began styling Eric's hair. It didn't take long before she stripped the cape away and turned Eric around. Oh my God, Eric gasped. He barely recognized himself. His hair was curled in soft waves, reminiscent of a classic Hollywood starlet. His face was adorned with bold red lipstick, winged eyeliner, and perfectly arched eyebrows. As Eric raised his hand to his face, he felt his polished, rounded nails. He wanted to protest, but for some reason, the shock faded, replaced by an unexpected sense of contentment. That's not all, Chloe said as she helped Eric to his feet and guided him into one of the changing rooms. Hanging on the hook was a garment bag. Eric didn't resist as Ma and Shannon helped him remove his clothes, nor did he fight as they slid a girdle over his waist, pantyhose over his legs, and a bullet bra over his chest. When they slid a pair of panties on, they moved to the garment bag and opened it. Inside was a red polka-dotted circle dress with a black waistband. Feels nice, right? Ma asked. Eric could sense something was wrong, but he couldn't bring himself to resist. Yeah, he sighed. They lifted his feet and placed him in a pair of red kitten heels. Shannon quickly added a pearl necklace around his neck and attached 2 clip-on earrings to his ears, careful not to disturb the earbuds. When they finished, Eric looked every bit the perfect 1950s housewife. Come on, your wife's almost done, Chloe said, grabbing Eric's hand and leading him to the front of the salon. Sarah was already out of her dressing room, wearing a blue polka-dotted circle dress. She looked stunning, almost identical to the woman standing by the entrance. What are the odds the wheel landed there twice in a row? Sarah thought to herself as she approached Eric, who was standing unsteadily in his unfamiliar heels, idly playing with his skirt. Oh, that's delightful. Sarah gushed before looking around. Where's my husband? Right here, Candy said, pointing to Eric. Finally, Eric noticed Sarah and waved at her. Eric? Sarah asked. You look, well, gorgeous, but that's not the point. You let them do this to you. Eric nodded dreamily, his gaze fixed on Sarah's eyes. She could tell he wasn't fully processing everything, but she couldn't deny the salon had done a remarkable job. In fact, she was starting to think Eric might even look better than she did. You both signed the forms, Candy began, but Sarah interrupted her. No, I'm not dissatisfied, Sarah cut in. It's unexpected, but, considering all the macho football games and concerts I've been dragged to throughout our marriage, if he said yes to everything. Thank you so much, girls, Sarah said. We'll definitely be back. Glad you enjoyed your makeovers, Candy responded. Wait, Chloe said, rushing up and pulling the earbuds out of Eric's ears. As soon as the music stopped, Eric's mind, which had previously felt foggy, snapped back into clarity. He was shocked when he finally realized what he was wearing and caught sight of himself in the mirror. He stood there speechless, his painted lips frozen in a look of shock. Sarah quickly understood what had happened. She grabbed Eric's hand and led him out of the store. Despite a few stumbles in the heels, they made it outside without much trouble. Since it's still my day, after all, Sarah said with a grin, I think we should go shopping. There's that new vintage store downtown. How does that sound? Eric started to nod, but then his mind cleared. Free of the music and atmosphere of the salon, he finally realized what had happened. Oh boy, Eric sighed. This is going to be a long day, and I have no idea how much Sarah has planned. Do not forget to join me on Patreon for exclusive content and early access.